This game is confusing, to the point that I sometimes wonder what is going on, but when I finally get it right, when things fall into place, that's when this game delivers. That's when this can be really entertaining and rewarding. This is Class of Heroes, a dungeon crawler that was released for PlayStation Portable about 15 years ago. This game lets you explore tons of mazes where monsters of various kinds do everything to destroy you. And not only that, sometimes the game is downright unfair to you, and you almost have to bite your tongue not to break down. But even though the game has been with us for a while, a version is now coming to Nintendo Switch, and in this video we check out how the game is experienced on the handheld console. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give a thumbs up. Let's go! So I started by assembling my team with the goal of taking on the challenges of the mazes. Since I knew nothing about either classes or races, I chose to take some of the predetermined characters: a thief, priest, alchemist and ninja, and a few others. A set of characters that feel pretty standard. But since this is a game that focuses on customization, there is the choice to create your own heroes. And the developers have spared no expense. There are 10 races and 15 classes to choose from, so the combinations are basically endless. After I finished, I was given a long introduction about the game's hub. Here you can start quests, buy items and heal your characters. No surprises really. But you can also save your game, something that is super important to get anywhere in this game. Because you don't want to play for an hour and then wipe and realize, oh, I didn't save and now I have to restart. Everything was quite easy in the beginning. Down in the first cave I encountered enemies that did minimal damage and died quickly. So I thought this is going to be an easy trip. If I got into trouble, I could just return to the hub, heal myself and then continue. But that's when everything went wrong. For some reason I ran into an enemy that was much stronger than the ones I had faced so far. Of course my entire team died. And since I hadn't saved my game, I lost about an hour of progress. How can one predict that the difficulty will increase so early in the game? I simply had to find an alternative tactic. I started grinding experience near the entrance. I had to level up my characters to make them resilient. And believe me, it takes time to level up. A long time. If you want to get a lot of experience points, you should go to dungeons with a higher difficulty level, but that also means a bigger chance that you will die. Another way to strengthen your men is to create weapons and armor. In the game there is a laboratory where you can combine items and thus equip your characters with things that make a difference. With better weapons you do a lot of damage and you can become almost invincible. But if you want an extra challenge, you can change the degree of difficulty: easy, normal and hard. I've tried all the difficulty levels and I am not entirely sure what the difference is. If you just get to face more enemies or if enemies do more damage. I'm not sure about this. The game doesn't tell me. In any case, I've managed pretty well regardless of the difficulty level. A lot of time is spent in the dungeons. Considering you're here most of the time, it's imperative that the mazes have an appealing design that makes it fun to explore and investigate. And the mazes offer a lot of things that can make it entertaining, challenging and confusing. It can be about finding specific keys that open up new paths, or getting through different portals that teleport you to the exit. It can also be about avoiding dangers such as electric plateaus or solving various puzzles. To help you, you have maps that make it easy to navigate. But if you go down into a cave without a map, it becomes next to impossible to find your way. At first I went down without a map, but realized quite quickly that it was totally untenable. It's like running around blindly. It is possible to use magic to create makeshift maps, but this is not something I recommend in the long run. You need real maps. But once I had explored an entire area, I found that it became quite easy to move on to the next place. There is also an auto-move function that is activated via the game's maps. This is a very useful tool, especially if you're lazy and want to progress quickly. I use this function constantly, and then I don't have to think about where I am or where I am going. I just press auto move and after a while I have reached the exit. The battles are turn-based and you often face rows of enemies. Some enemies are very dangerous and pump out a ton of damage, while others are very weak and easy to eliminate. Sometimes you also meet bosses, and I was surprised at how weak some bosses can be. A couple of well-placed hits with good weapons and they're dead, but the degree of difficulty varies. What I appreciate about the battles is that you get to use all your abilities. Sometimes you can use combos that benefit all of your characters, and sometimes you can use magic and physical attacks that can damage the enemy. To this you can apply a variety of spells that make the enemy weaker or yourself stronger, so there is a lot to experiment with. The enemies are visually very varied. You fight a variety of creatures ranging from goblins, pumpkins and bats and so on. There is no pattern at all, and the array of enemies is large. In the game you can also complete lots of missions. Unfortunately, the quests give a mixed impression. This has to do with vague descriptions. Sometimes it just says that you have to meet someone somewhere. And it's like the game takes for granted that you know where to go. I claim the opposite. The descriptions are so vague that a task that could be completed in 5 minutes can take 2 hours. Admittedly, this leads to a lot of investigating, almost like detective work, and that in itself is a bit of fun. But when you think you are in the right place, but it turns out that the end goal is far away, then it's on the verge of frustrating. Where does the game want me to go? Sometimes the descriptions are very vague and difficult to interpret. When it comes to how the game performs on the Nintendo Switch, I can only say that everything flows very well. I have been playing for almost 40 hours and still haven't encountered any crashes. It is also not a game that is affected by a low frame rate. As I said, the battles are turn-based and a lot of the game is very static, except when you're running around in dungeons. But even then everything flows well, both in handheld and docked mode, so it's a solid game. Much of the time is also spent in the game's menus, and here I would like to see a couple of improvements. In general, the menus are very messy. Above all, a lot of time is spent on sorting materials and creating weapons and armor. Sometimes you have to move things between characters and it can be difficult to get an overview of the whole situation. You can have materials to create 20 weapons and you are forced to spend a lot of unnecessary time optimizing and finding what suits each individual character. And for this you need to make sure you have the right resources in the right place so you can create the items you so desire. Sometimes it just becomes too much, so you wish there was an easier solution to navigating through all the menus. So is this a game worth buying? You can buy the game as is, but there is also a special edition that also includes Class of Heroes 2G, a game I will review next. And maybe this edition is the one to bet on if you enjoy this type of game. Now, it's been many years since this game came out, and I feel that this far in hindsight, things could have been done to improve the experience significantly. This spontaneously feels like a game from another era, and I would have liked to see several changes to make the overall experience complete. For example, making it easier to navigate the menus and having quests that are somewhat easier to understand, i.e. less cryptic. Visually, there is a great variety of environments you run around in, everything from dark caves down to hell, but the environments also look quite dated. They would need an update, but even though this is not a perfect game, it is a very large and extensive adventure that will take days to complete. In addition, there are plenty of options, so you can customize your own team to your liking, and you can find and craft tons of weapons and armor. And there are lots of abilities and skills to use. And it feels like this is the game's great asset. The combination of lots of exploration and putting together and using your own dream team. So if you appreciate deep customization and exploring dungeons, then this might be a game for you. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I review new games every week. Have a great day. See ya!